Good evening. The Jackson Public School Board meeting is now called to order. Board members, we have 6 members present. We have 4 here in the boardroom and 2 on the phone, Mrs. Johnson and Dr. Hairston. Mrs. Thompson is not able to be with us this evening. We have all had an opportunity to review, therefore we have a quorum. We have all had an opportunity to review the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Luckett has moved. Ms. Hilliard has seconded. All in favor?
Now called to order.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Next, we have all had an opportunity to review the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the December 20th regular board meeting minutes?
I so move.
Second.
Ms. Hilliard has moved. Mr. Figurs has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 The motion carries. Next, we're on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Green.
Thank
All in
you.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries.
There's a delay on the phone.
It's a delay. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Sivak. Good evening to all of our Jackson Public Schools community members, our administrators, our staff, our
Seconded. All in favor?
parents.
Aye.
The motion carries.
We will begin with, as we typically do, with our highlights reel from the Instruction Television team.
5 JPS team members got a surprise visit from JPS Superintendent Dr. Eric L. Green for their outstanding contributions and commitments to the scholars, the families, and the employees of the Jackson Public School District.
I think all of us probably have some great memories of an educator, a teacher, a principal, or a counselor, or someone who literally changed the trajectory of our lives.
DeLacy Bridges of McLeod Elementary was named Administrator of the Year. Lindsay McQueen of Dawson Elementary was named Teacher of the Year.
We got your family on the line.
Dr. Carrie Lowe Johnson of Smith Elementary was named Parent of the Year. Latoya Blackshear at JPS Central Office was named District Leader of the Year. And Dr. Siobhan McDuffie Otis at Central Office was named District Support Staff of the Year. Congratulations! Jackson Public Schools hosted the first annual Day of Service for the Homeless.
I really feel like it is very important for kids to give back to their community. It is great for them to cheer at games and performances, but I try to stress the importance of giving back throughout the school year.
Donation boxes at JPS school campuses and offices filled up as the local community responded by donating food and clothing. A day to celebrate the life of Dr. King was also a day to lend a helping hand to Jackson's homeless. The sound of children singing was met with a warm reception at the recent JPS Hines Pre-K Donor Brunch, an event where many in attendance opened their pocketbooks to generously support the education of young JPS scholars.
580 slots has now grown to the capacity to serve 1,226 4-year-olds.
Murrah High School soccer on a winning streak. For 2 consecutive years, several players received National All-American honors. Congratulations, Kendarius Smith, Breland Davis, Jamie Settles, and Cameron Armstrong, who were selected as 2023 Soccer Youth National All-American Series athletes. For more information about Jackson Public Schools, please visit our website at www.jackson.k12.ms.us. Follow us on Facebook at Jackson Public Schools, on Twitter at JPS District, Comcast Channels 18 and 19, and YouTube at www.youtube.com/JPSITV.
As always, we want to thank the team for those highlights and helping us to relive some of those special moments. We really did have a great month, really the last few weeks of last year and over the past week or so, celebrating our teacher and principal and parent and district leader and support staff member of the year, and all of the other activities that you saw there leading up to our day of service, which was that yesterday? Jeez.
Yeah.
Which was yesterday. These days are running together. Really want to thank our team members who had the heart and the mind to do something to serve our community and to support those who are less fortunate. Our day of service yesterday focused on homeless population and providing them with meals and with socks and caps and all sorts of toiletries and other things. And we'll see what next year's day of service brings. But this is a commitment that we're making to not only do right by our scholars and families through the educational services we provide, but also getting out of our offices, out of our schools, specifically on MLK Day, and celebrating the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King through service. And so, again, just thanks to all of those who helped to make yesterday a huge success, and just looking forward to doing more of the same. And speaking of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., in honor of him and the continued celebration of that holiday yesterday, we've invited a special scholar from Wells APAC to join us and present an excerpt from Dr. King's Montgomery bus boycott speech. At this time, I invite our Wells APAC principal, Dr. Kesher Love Rankin, to join us and introduce this outstanding scholar. Happy New Year, Dr. Rankin.
Happy New Year. Good evening to the members of the board, board president, our superintendent, and all of our administrative staff. It gives me great honor to introduce this amazing young lady. Her name is Savannah Woodall. She is an intelligent and friendly fifth grade scholar at Wells APAC with a theater emphasis. She is a high honor roll scholar who loves learning and sharing her knowledge with others. She is witty, courageous, dependable, and wise. She loves painting and listening to music. She also enjoys hanging out with her mother, Miss Vanessa Gray. When she grows up, she wants to be an astronomer. Please welcome Savannah Woodall.
My friends, we are certainly very happy to see each of you out this evening. We are here this evening for very serious business. We are here in a general sense because first and foremost, we are American citizens and we are determined to apply our citizenship to the fullest of its meaning. We are also here because of our love for democracy and our deep-seated belief that democracy transformed from thin paper to thick action is the greatest form of government on earth. We are here in a specific sense because of the bus situation in Montgomery, and we are determined to get the situation corrected. The problem has existed over endless years. Negroes in Montgomery and so many other areas have been inflicted with the paralysis of crippling fears on buses in our community. On so many occasions, Negroes have been intimidated and humiliated and oppressed because of this sheer fact that they were Negroes. I don't have time this evening to go into the history of these numerous cases. And you know, there comes a time when people get tired of being trampled over by the iron feet of oppression, when people get tired of being plunged across the abyss of humiliation where they experience the bleakness of nagging despair. We are here now because we are tired. And I want to say that we are not advocating violence. We have never done that. We believe in the Christian religion. The only weapon that we have in our hands this evening is the weapon of protest. That is all. And certainly, this is the glory of America with all its faults. This is the glory of our democracy. If we were incarnated behind the iron curtains of a communistic nation, we wouldn't do this. If we were dropped in the dungeon of a total regime, we couldn't do this. There will be nobody amid or among us who will stand up and defy the Constitution of this nation. We only assemble here because of our desire to see right exist. I want it to be known that we are going to work with grim and bold determination to gain justice on the buses in this city. And we are not wrong in what we're doing. If we are wrong, the Supreme Court of this nation is wrong. If we are wrong, the Constitution of the United States is wrong. If we are wrong, God Almighty is wrong. If we are wrong, Jesus of Nazareth was merely a utopian dreamer that had never came down to earth. If we are wrong, justice is a lie. Love has no meaning. And we are determined here in Montgomery to work and fight until justice runs down like water and righteous like a mighty stream. Standing beside love is always justice, and we are only using the tools of justice. Not only is this process of education, but it is also a process of legislation. As we prepare ourselves for what lies ahead, let us go out with a grim and bold determination that we are going to stick together. We are going to work together right here in Montgomery. When the history books are written in the future, somebody will have to say, there lived a race of people, fleecy locks and black complexion. A people who had the moral and courage to stand up for their rights, and thereby they injected a new meaning into the veins of history and civilization. I want to see this thing work, and we will not be content until oppression is wiped out of Montgomery and really America. We won't be content until that is done. We are merely insisting on the dignity and worth of every human personality. I am not arguing for any selfish person. I've never been on a bus in Montgomery. I will not be content. If I can hear a voice saying, if you can do it unto these, the least of these, you can do it unto me. I won't rest. I will face intimidation and everything else, along with these other fighters for democracy and citizenship. We don't mind it, so long as justice comes out of it. And I have come to see now that as we struggle for our rights, maybe some of them will have to die. But somebody said, if a man doesn't have something that he'll die for, he isn't fit to live.
Savannah's mom is here, and I think it's her little sister is here to celebrate her as well. You all heard from Dr. Love Rankin, and also Ms. Quarterman is here, and I believe Savannah is under the tutelage of Ms. Quarterman in the drama department, correct? So wave your hands so the people see you. Yes. Thank you to the entire Wells APAC team. Amen. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Just appreciate you bringing those words, bringing the vision and the dream that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke of and worked towards here into this room. Thank you for that. And in addition to that wonderful recitation by Savannah Woodall, we will continue our King celebration with another presentation by some talented scholars from Callaway High School. At this time, I'll invite Callaway's assistant principal, Ms. Stacy Bailey, to join us and introduce these exceptional scholars. Happy Founders Day, Ms. Bailey. Representing.
Greetings and salutations from 601 Beasley Road, where it's always a great day to be a Callaway Charger. On behalf of my principal, Dr. Shamika McClung, I would like to introduce to you Callaway's award-winning male chorale under the direction of Mr. Jamie Jones.
Good evening. We're going to keep it short, please, and be on
Little church members.
Holy Spirit, come.
lifting up my soul. I ain't got long to stay here. Steal away, steal away, steal away to Jesus. Steal away, steal away home. I ain't got long to stay here, to stay. Steal away home.
Right there, the little one right there. It's my church member.
Of course it is.
Live a humble Lord. Humble yourself over the bells young run. Live a humble Lord. Live a humble Lord. Humble yourself over the bells done run. Live a humble, humble yourself. Bell done run. Humble yourself. Bell done run. Glory and honor. Praise King Jesus. Singing glory and honor. Praise the Lord. I'm shouting glory and honor. Praise King Jesus. Shouting glory and honor. Praise the Lord. Humble yourself. Bell done run. Humble yourself. Bell done run. Some go to church to put on pretend until the day of grace is spent. The old man Adam had never been out. When the service commenced, he jumped up and shout. I'm singing glory and honor. Praise King Jesus. Singing glory and honor. Praise the Lord. I'm shouting glory and honor. Praise King Jesus. Shouting glory and honor. Praise the Lord. Humble yourself. Bell done run. Humble yourself. Bell done run. Some people say they're gonna bother God. I know very well they're telling a lie. If my Lord Christ Jesus has set them free, they will always let their neighbor's business be. I'm singing glory and honor. Hallelujah. Sounds upon the angel's song. I'm singing glory and honor. Praise King Jesus. Singing glory and honor. Praise the Lord. I'm shouting glory and honor. Praise King Jesus. Shouting glory and honor. Praise the Lord. Humble yourself. Bell done run. Humble yourself. Bell done run. Done run.
My little church member.
From your church, take some pictures.
The third one from this end.
Look like that.
Yeah.
Miss Hilliard does he sing in the church?
Oh, my goodness. Thank you so much, Mr. Jones. Thank you to the entire men's chorale and to the Callaway family. You know, it just goes without saying. We keep seeing over and over just how talented our scholars are, how much talent we have throughout Jackson Public Schools, in the classrooms, outside of the classrooms, you name it, our people are showing up. So just thank you, board members, for giving us this time and space to present some of the talent and heart and just just how amazing our scholars are. They just make me smile, make me beam. I actually heard these gentlemen at Mrs. Hilliard's church at Mount Helm a few weeks back, at a program there, and I said I had to have them join us here at the board meeting. So you'll probably be seeing them again because why not? With that, Dr. Sivak, that ends all of my remarks for this evening, and I turn the meeting back over to you.
No, well, thank you, Dr. Green, and thank you to our scholars, Ms. Woodall. It's wonderful to hear you and be a part of our meeting to remind us that the work of the movement is not over. Thank you for reminding us of that today. Board members, before I move into the meeting, do any of y'all want to share any comments or reflections, words of gratitude and praise?
Yeah, I would just like to say that this has been a very interesting beginning for the year to see the youngsters performing. And young lady, you're going to be a real good little speaker, aren't you? Mm-hmm. Yes, you were quite good. Yes, very good. We appreciate you. Going to have to follow you. Mm-hmm.
It's always great to have our students involved and to get to see this great talent from those young men and your words. And, you know, through the work I get to do, I often say that I believe the #1 civil rights issue of our day is equitable access to the highest quality education possible for all children. And I believe that's the work we're doing here. And I'm grateful for that opportunity, and I'm grateful to be reminded of the good work that is happening with our young scholars.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you again. Oh, you want? They're back to acknowledge your church member. They're back to acknowledge your church.
My church member, where are you? Yes, and the thing about it, I taught his mama too.
All right. Thank you all for, I heard that lost song, and if heaven is a thing and I'm lucky enough to go, I feel like that's what I will be hearing when I walk through the door. So thank you all for just sharing your talent and your time. I know you have other places you could be, but to spend it with us tonight was a joy and a highlight. One of the highlights of the time of our entire service, I would say, while we're here. So thank you. All right. No public comment, so I'll just remind folks that community members who would like to make public comments should email their request to Ms. Rosalind Williams at roswilliams@jackson.k12.ms.us no later than 4 p.m. the day of the meeting, or appear in person in the boardroom no later than 5:15 the day of the meeting. All right, board members, we'll move quickly, board member reports. Before we get started, I do really want to just take a moment to shout out all of the staff members who pulled together the day of service yesterday. I had the opportunity to go out, and there was nothing for me to do because there were so many Jim Hill cheerleaders and Powell cheerleaders and Bailey Knight cheerleaders and team members, and I just want to lift each of you up and appreciate you for creating a space where we could live into the spirit of what that day really means, a day of service. My favorite part, in addition to seeing the students, was actually just conversations with local people reminiscing about some of the local leaders in the movement, about Bob Moses and his work with the Algebra Project, and there's just so many ties here in Jackson. So again, thank you for just creating that space for us. It's just another moment where we're just so proud to be a part of what's going on here in Jackson Public Schools. So with that, we'll move into the business of the day and with school improvement updates. And I believe Dr. McDonald is going to share this information. All right. Dr. McDonald.
Good evening.
Evening.
Good evening.
Dr. Sivak, school board members, Dr. Green, and our JPS family. The Office of School Improvement received our 2022-2023 identified schools for this year. So this presentation is to serve as an update for some and a reminder for others of the school improvement process and the work that we have to undertake. Federal law requires us to identify our schools based on 3 categories. Those categories are CSI, TSI, and ATSI. Mississippi Code 3718-1 also requires us to identify schools. This identification is based on the accountability grade of that particular school. So our 3 federal identifications are CSI, TSI, and ATSI. And our state identification is SAR, School at Risk. The CSI identifications are based on graduation rates for high schools, overall performance of schools, in addition to ATSI identifications for consecutive years. Our TSI schools identifications are based on subgroup performance in the moment for that particular year, and our ATSI identifications are based on subgroup performance over a period of time. Our SAR identification is based solely on the accountability letter grade of a school. If a school has an accountability letter grade of an F, that school is identified by the state as a school at risk. There was a slight change to the methodology. Our CSI schools methodology will now match the ATSI methodology, where 3 years worth of data is examined to identify that particular school. So now our CSI schools and ATSI schools will mirror one another. This particular year and subsequent years, we will look at 3 years worth of data. This year we examined 17-18, 18-19, 21 and 22 data to identify the ATSI schools as well as the CSI schools. Our TSI schools will remain the same, where they look at 1 year worth of data for that particular school. We also received our exited schools for this year, so we would be remiss if we did not celebrate those schools that exited the school improvement process through hard work. So we have about 8 schools that exited that process for this year, so kudos to those leaders and teachers. We also captured our identified schools for this year. We have about 14 total identified schools, which is considerably less. Much less than we've had in previous years. We only have 1 SAR school this year, and that's Marshall Elementary. It's the only school that received that SAR identification. That list is also considerably smaller than we've had in previous years. This flow chart captures what I just shared with you, the accountability data that was looked at to help us with this particular identification. We also have to pay attention to the fall of 23 identification. If our CSI schools are identified again in the fall of 23, they will be escalated to what the state has called the MRO option, which is a more rigorous option. What that looks like right now, we don't have any guidance on, but we should be receiving some guidance around the MROs in the next few weeks. Our ATSI schools, if they are identified again for the same subgroup performance in the fall of 23, they will escalate to CSI status. So that was an additional change to the process as well. Those schools that will be impacted are highlighted in red. So our CSI schools in red, if they are re-identified in the fall, they will escalate to that MRO option. If our ATSI schools identified in red are re-identified for the same subgroup in the fall of 23, they will escalate to the CSI category. Our CSI schools will receive leadership coaching as well as participate in virtual checkpoints with MDE. They will also receive priority consideration for professional learning opportunities in addition to funding. Our TSI and ATSI schools will also receive priority or preferential consideration with professional learning opportunities as well as additional funding. Unfortunately, our state-identified school or the SAR school will only receive professional learning priority, no additional funding for that particular school. All of our schools will participate in a series of interviews as well as work. That work is captured here on the screen for your review. As I mentioned to you earlier, our CSI schools, ATSI, and TSI schools will receive additional funding. All CSI schools will be awarded first. They will receive a base amount of $100,000. Our ATSI schools will be awarded after the CSI schools, and they will receive a base amount of $40,000. Once all of the federally identified schools receive funds around the state, if any funds remain, those schools will receive additional funds on a per pupil allocation. In addition to the funding, we will have to begin our school board updates where we will capture the performance of our students based on benchmark results, in addition to enrollment data, student ADA data, and other data pertinent to our school success. Are there any questions about the school improvement update?
Thank you, Dr. McDonald. Board members, are there any questions, comments on the information that was shared? Hearing none, I do have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
So there was one pattern that I noticed. So I noticed that 7 of the 8 middle schools were re-identified as at-risk schools, and with the addition of Kirksey, now 8 of 10 middle schools are at risk.
Yes, sir.
Which I think is all of our middle schools that aren't program schools. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So what is our strategy to increase the pace of exits of our middle schools from this list?
Yes, sir. Dr. Greer, I'll defer to our middle school assistant superintendent.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
So, coordinating efforts with the Office of Data, Ability, and Accountability and Research, we developed a plan so that we can really identify in school status different subgroups so that we can track students better. This, we really already have this, but we're going to give principals more insights on how they can really track students based on subgroup performance. That's one thing we really want to do. Secondly, we've begun administering biweekly common assessments across the division so that we can have a tighter grip and focus on students and how they're progressing, not waiting until midterm or benchmark, but biweekly having these common assessments across the division. We're able to really focus on those students based on heavily weighted standards, okay? And finally, and these are just the top 3 strategies that we're utilizing, facilitated tutorial pullouts, where we're working with students in small groups and really focusing on those students in that Promising 25 and in other subgroups as well. So just trying to have a targeted approach to really track the data and make sure that we're putting these interventions in place to support our students.
Great. And so the first strategy that you shared was focusing on subgroups. Could you provide some examples of subgroups?
Yes, absolutely. So, for example, students with disabilities. We look at schools like Peoples, for example. They didn't come out because of that subgroup. So not only at Peoples, but all of the middle schools, we really want to take a deep dive and look at those subgroups so that we can really focus on them more intensively.
Great. And recognizing that a number of our schools were re-identified, are these the subgroup strategy, the biweekly common assessments, and the tutorial pullouts, are those new approaches that are being implemented this year? What's different from what we did last year?
That's a good question. Well, I think the level of intensity and the intentionality of it has really, shifted, and we have a stronger focus. Now, I will say the biweekly common assessments, We have not done that before, okay? So this is something new that we're implementing so that we can really tightly track and monitor, student performance. So that is new. Pullouts have been around for a while, but having a more strategic focus on who we're pulling out, really looking at students based on data and not just trying to have a one-size-fits-all, small groups and working with students based on their need. So
Great.
just more intentionality.
And thank you. And the last question I'll ask on this series, so the last, or one of the last slides, was around resources. So that one, funding methodology. Do you have the resources you need to implement the strategies to get the results that we're shooting for?
Yes, sir. I'm confident. I think we do. As a matter of fact, I know we do. We have the resources, the instructional resources and the human resources to really support our students in the areas that we need. Again, just shifting the focus to be more intentional and just not having a one-size-fits-all, I think is just really, going to help us even more. And we've been training our principals and all of our coaches and people to really be more intentional about their work.
Great. Thank you.
Dr. Sivak, I do want to lift up and underscore that last statement that Dr. Greer made. While many of these strategies are focused on better understanding where the scholars are and what their needs are, there's also quite a bit of work that the team has been doing to support the educators to be more impactful in their first teaching of skills, reteaching of skills and concepts, supporting the school leaders and across the board around content. I think we've added some days with some of our lead partners to support in various schools, both elementary and secondary schools. So there's a good bit of focus that is about the adults as well to ensure that we're better prepared to be impactful with the instructional practices. So.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Green. Thank you, Dr. Greer.
Right,
Thank you, Dr. McDonald. All right. Board members, we have another opportunity to hear from a student, and Ms. Marshall Thomas is going to introduce our school board representative from Murrah High School, Mrs. Thomas.
Good evening, Dr. Sivak, board members, Dr. Green. This evening, we will hear from our student school board representative from Murrah High School, Mr. Emmanuel Edwards. Emmanuel is a senior at Murrah. He's also a second-year culinary arts student at our Career Development Center. He's a member of the chess and tennis teams. And at this time, Emmanuel will come and share his policy study with the team.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
The benefits of implementing a remedial English course. Additional context is our average ACT score in JPS is around a 13, and the average all around in Mississippi is about an 18. And from a student perspective inside of the classroom, I can tell that English is probably one of the most struggled subjects that we have as a whole. Inside of the classrooms, it's constant grammatical errors, constant errors inside of spelling, sentence structure, and it wastes time inside of the classroom. We have to constantly backtrack to try to figure out what should be done just to properly form a sentence. The policy reference is policy IGD. My proposal was sparked by many students who score low and frequently struggle in their English courses. In an attempt to increase the average English score, I propose an additional English course for students with lower English scores. These classes can be based on elementary through middle school testing scores and teacher recommendation. This course can act similarly to the foundations class that has already been implemented, or it can be a course for 6th through 9th graders. What the class will focus on The class will focus on reading comprehension and material that has to do with proper use of grammar, sentence structure, and all forms of punctuation. If possible, I suggest implementing extra spelling resources into these courses because most of our students have a hard time spelling grade level words. English teacher quotes. I believe that several students will benefit from this type of class. Not all scholars learn at the same level. We as instructors are expected to provide diversified teaching with the expectation that the students are on the same level. However, this is not the case in most classes. Another teacher says, it will help students enhance their ability to write effectively. Most students have difficulty with simple things that they have to waste time in class having to backtrack on. Student quotes. Learning English to this day, I have yet to be able to use complex sentences and grammar in my writing, originating from my limited knowledge and these mechanics because of the ignorance I'm still within. Another student says, I would say I am almost close to becoming a complex writer. I do also feel that a class will be helpful to many students, such as myself, to make better decisions in writing. Ending remarks is that the course will be beneficial to all who take it. It will increase their critical thinking skills and provide scholars with comprehension skills. Targeting a gap in education in the lower grade levels will be another step towards excellence in our district. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Board members, are there questions, comments?
I like that. Question. I think that's a very good point. You know, more students struggle with English than possibly any other subject, and possibly that includes math too. The complex sentence, you say you still are not able to incorporate complex sentences in your writing. What are you doing to deal with that issue, you know, being that you're getting ready to go to college and, you know, you'll be writing papers and your papers teachers will expect your papers to not be elementary, so that means that you're going to do those complex sentences and compound complex sentences, all of those kinds of things there in your paper. So how are you planning to approach that?
Now, I would say me personally, I didn't write that quote. It was from a random student at the school. But I would say having to deal with college, it does kind of set us inside of a hard place to be in. Because now we would have to go backtrack on our own or seek additional help inside of classes, or we would probably be put inside of a remedial course inside of college itself just to help us write.
Okay. Thank you. Excellent response.
Good job, Emmanuel. Thank you for being here. You did an excellent work. I'm just wondering what inspired you to pick this particular policy and issue. Was there something that really struck you about this need?
I would say me personally, after I got done taking the ACT and I seen the material that they went over, I felt like I was unprepared as a student just to take the English portion as a whole. They was going over stuff that I wasn't familiar with or I haven't heard of at a long time. And I just thought that maybe we should have a class that targets specifically the actual sentence structure, proper punctuation and grammar use, so that students will be more prepared for it, and it could possibly skyrocket our scores.
Thanks. Good job.
Culinary arts?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so your career plan is what?
I like to keep my options open. I'm taking culinary just because I can go into college for it, but I'm also looking into computer science, public speaking, and maybe politics.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, a lot of
I was going to suggest politics with a response like that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mr. Edwards. Thank you for the time, for pulling this. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. Do you have any so the recommendation that I heard here today was to add another class that students would be required to take based on middle school test scores? Is that the recommendation?
Something like that, similar to it.
Okay. So here's a question for you.
There was a time when that was a part of the JPS curriculum for students who, you know, needed that extra class.
Okay. So Ms. Hilliard was saying there was a time when there were similar processes in place. My question for you is, do you have any concerns about student labels? So if a student gets put in that class, you know, and you know, students are students, you know, teenagers, and so you got a group of students who are put in that class because it's a requirement. It's based on a test score, and other students who are not. Do you have any concerns about labeling or how other students will look at the students who are in this new required class if it were to be implemented?
I would say there's a slight concern. This is just me coming from a student, but most of the time when we look at people that are in lower classes or in remedial classes as it is right now, we don't look at them as a lower standard. We just see them as people who need more guidance. So I feel like it will outweigh them actually being able to learn inside of the classroom and be able to uphold their scores and becoming a better district in general than looking at somebody objectively.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, too.
All right. You're welcome.
Very well done.
All right. We always enjoy hearing from our school board representatives, and we learn a lot. So thank you for your time. All right, board members. Next, we'll move on to the information action item section of our agenda. I'm going to invite Attorney Moore up to the podium to share information on the agreement between MedCorps and Jackson Public School District.
Good evening, board members, board president, Dr. Seebeck, and Dr. Green. The Office of the General Counsel and Risk Management is recommending that the board approve the renewal of the Memorandum of Understanding to engage MedCorps in providing telephonic nurse triage services to assist employees who were injured on the job and to reduce the lag time between the occurrence of an on-the-job injury and the reporting of that injury. We have been using MedCorps for the past few years, and the lag time has decreased accordingly as we've been using their services. We initially implemented MedCorps in 2021, and the lag time decreased as follows. It was at 25.4 days in 2019. It decreased to 22.1 days in 2020, 8.9 days in 2021, and 4.9 days through 2022 through the beginning of October. Currently, we have 82% of all incidents reported within 3 days, and 88% of all incidents are reported within 7 days. And the best practice is to have 80% of incidents to be reported in the first 4 days. The district's insurance consultants, the Evans Agency, have recommended the continuation of the MedCorps service, and the Office of the General Counsel supports that recommendation. The annual service for this, the service fee for this service is $12,000, and that's based on 150 claims at $80 per claim. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Attorney Moore. Board members, any questions, comments? I'll just say thank you for bringing this to us. I can remember many years ago, the workers' comp was an area where we had great opportunities to make gains, and the data you shared show significant improvement there. I think it's also important to point out that as the reporting time decreases, our cost for insurance goes down as well. So this is certainly want to just tie it back to how these increased efficiencies also result in cost savings. Also good to hear we are using our consultants that we are engaging. Board members, is there a motion to approve the agreement?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Luckett has moved. Ms. Hilliard has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Attorney Moore. Next, we have the request to approve the agreement between the Mississippi School of the Deaf and Blind, and the Mississippi Department of Education and the Jackson Public School District. And our board counsel, Attorney Turner, will share this information.
So, board members, if this agreement looks familiar to you, it was because almost the same agreement was brought to you previously. I believe it was back in your October meeting. At the time it was brought to you back in October, the format of it was as an interlocal agreement between the same parties, the Mississippi Department of Education and the Mississippi Schools for the Deaf and Blind. And it was essentially creating a partnership where JPS students and students at the schools for the deaf and blind would have opportunities to receive services from each of the schools. For various reasons, the attorneys at the AG's office at the Mississippi School for the Deaf and Blind drafted the agreement and decided to do it in the form of an interlocal agreement. The interlocal agreement was presented to the school board, to the JPS board. You all approved it. It was presented to the State Board of Education. They approved it, and it was approved to the Mississippi School and the Deaf and Blind. They approved it. All the parties executed it, and it was then sent to the Attorney General's office. The Interlocal Governmental Act, which is the statutory act that governs the approval of interlocal agreements, requires that all these interlocal agreements be sent to the Attorney General's office, and then they have 60 days to review it, and if they don't disapprove it within 60 days, the agreement goes in place, and it has to be filed in the, I believe it's the Chancery Court office. When it got to the Attorney General's office, they took the position that because the Mississippi Department of Education is a party and it's a state agency rather than a local government, that the agreement couldn't be approved under the Interlocal Government Act. So the attorneys got together again, and we all decided that it was fine to approve it just as a regular MOU. And so the agreement is being brought back to you. Substantively, it's the exact same agreement that you approved before, but we've removed all the references to the Interlocal Act. It won't have to go through the AG's office, and so it'll just be approved by the three parties again, and then the arrangement will go into place.
Great. Thank you for that very detailed and helpful explanation, Attorney Turner. Board members, are there any questions? If not, is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
Second.
Mr. Figurs has moved. Ms. Hilliard has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 The motion carries. Next, we'll take these next two items together. Dr. Scott, our Executive Director of School Support, will share information on the agreement between Monique Butler and Jackson Public School District and the agreement between Pamela Franklin, LLC, and the Jackson Public School District.
Good evening, Board President Dr. Sivak, Superintendent Dr. Green, board members, and JPS family. The administration recommends review and approval of the lead partner contract to provide professional development and instructional coaching in response to RFP 202224 to Monique Martinez Butler. Monique Martinez Butler will provide job-embedded support at, for our administrative and instructional staff at the Montessori program at McWillie. Any questions?
No questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
You want me to read both of them?
Please, yeah, we'll
I'm
just take them up
sorry.
together.
Okay, you did say that.
That's okay.
All right, second one, the administration recommends the approval of the amended contract for Pamela M. Franklin, LLC. After a review of midterm and 9 weeks data, the administration at Smith Elementary School identified a need for additional support in mathematics. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Scott. I did have one question now that both were up. Was the agreement with, I don't have my notes up, is the agreement with Monique Butler, was that for McWillie Elementary?
Yes.
It was. Okay.
Yes.
I'm straight on them now. Okay. Board members, is there a motion to approve?
I move that we approve items C and D.
I second.
Dr. Luckett has moved. Ms. Hilliard has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 The motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Scott. Next, we'll invite Mr. Burke up to run through the next series of proposals. We will take the, I am going to ask questions, so we'll probably work through each of these. So first is the request to approve the recommendation for Great Minds for decodable readers and to ratify prior payments. Mr. Burke.
Thank you. President Sivak, Superintendent Green, board, audience. The administration requests approval of the RFP 2211 award to Great Minds and the ratification and approval of the payments of specific invoices related to providing high-quality decodable readers to students in grades kindergarten through second grade. The administration also requests approval for future payments to keep this award current. On July So some background to the questions that were asked. On July 19th, 2022, the administration did not recommend the award of RFP 2211 issued for decodable readers. The approved recommendation was a memorandum of understanding between Great Minds and JPS to conduct professional development and training to ensure the effective implementation of the decodable readers, however. Due to this mix-up with the receipt of the contract from Great Minds and the July approval of the board, the district had at that time already received all of the decodable readers. It had partially paid for some of the items received while Attorney Turner was reviewing the submitted contract. Due to this fact, Great Minds took the position that a contract revision was unnecessary, and since materials had already been delivered and many of the terms in the contract were moot, the contract was never approved. Was not necessary, I'm sorry. This oversight was determined once purchase orders were issued and a review of the board minutes was compared to purchasing bid documents. To correct this oversight, the administration recommends tonight the approval of an award of RFP 2211 for purchasing decodable readers to Great Minds. The administration requests that the board, as an additional part of this recommendation, ratify prior payments made to Great Minds in the amount of $22,596.95, and also would like to ask for approval to pay held invoices in the amount of $720,192.45, and all other future payments due to Great Minds will be done under the authority of this corrected board recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Burke.
You're welcome.
Board members, are there any questions? Okay, I just want to make sure I understand.
Yes, sir.
Because as I hear it, it sounds like we approved did we approve a contract? Well, there was a contract, but it was only for services, not for equipment.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And so, but we've been sent all of the equipment.
Yes, sir. At the time that was going through the review, the district moved forward with purchasing because they looked at the board agenda, saw that it had been approved, put the purchase orders through, and ordered the items. The items were being delivered, and suddenly we got an invoice, and somebody said, wait, this says one thing, and the board authority said something slightly different. So that caused us to re-review it, put all those invoices on hold, even though we had the material. Great Minds has been very patient in us working through what's going on here. But there was two different things. The original RFP was for decodable readers and professional development. It got twisted up and confused because Great Minds sent sent a contract for review that Attorney Dorian was reviewing, and we were moving forward with the purchase. So these were it's all one thing, but the main thing, which was the RFP for the decodables, was never approved. You approved her reviewed professional development agreement, but you never approved the original item, which was the RFP for, or awarded the RFP for the equipment that we received. So we need to do that piece, so we can pay them for all of that stuff.
Okay. Attorney Turner.
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
kind of the source of this, so maybe I can explain it, add a little bit. So you first got a contract for professional development. And so back in July, that's the contract you approved. With that contract being approved, the administration assumed that the board was approving the entire purchase of the professional development and the equipment that the professional development applied to.
Right.
What the administration essentially wanted to do was to buy these decodable readers, and then they want from Great Minds, and then Great Mind was going to provide training and professional development on how to use them. Great Minds initially sent a professional development agreement only. And so I reviewed that agreement, it got presented to the board approved it. The purchasing office thought the entire transaction was approved, so the purchasing office went on and approved the purchase, issued the PO, I think, and
Yes.
all the equipment started coming in. So then subsequently, I got a contract for the purchase of the equipment. And I was reviewing the contract for the purchase of the equipment, and when I called the Great Minds people to say, I've got a couple of little minor changes, they said, well, you've already got the equipment and we've paid for some of it. So at that point, because we had done that, you know, a lot of the terms in the contract, I said, well, there's no need to do a contract. The terms of, you know, when the contract talks about how are you going to pay for it and when are you going to order it and how to issue a purchase order and how is it going to be delivered. And so all of those kind of details really didn't matter anymore because we already had the equipment. So that's when I picked up the phone and called, and we discovered that it was, and I discovered it was all part of the same transaction. The purchasing office was thinking the whole thing had been approved, but what had been approved was the professional development for the equipment that we had, but the purchase contract for the equipment had never come to the board. Right. Is that clear?
That's clear.
Okay, so we decided the purchase contract was no longer necessary because we had the equipment already. So what we're doing with the board now is to just have you go back and approve the purchase of the equipment that goes along with the professional development that you've already approved.
Okay.
Is that making sense?
It does.
Yeah, so this kind of just closes all of the pieces to the transaction so that the board will get both the equipment and the professional development. But when we kind of discovered all of this back in December, we had to bring it all together.
Okay. So there's one piece of what you shared that I just want to get clarity on. So initially, it sounded like we didn't pay for the equipment, but I heard you say...
We paid for some of
We
it.
paid
like
for $29,000 worth.
That's the $29,000.
Yes.
And why do we not have to do a quantum merit for $29,000 if we didn't have a contract in place to purchase it? You understand my question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, because at the time we discovered it, we had already paid it. Quantum merit gives you the authority to pay something when you haven't gone through the proper contracting method.
Right.
Yes.
We had already paid for it, so what we're asking the board to do is ratify that payment.
Okay.
And all the other invoices were held, so there is no quantum merit with the already received equipment that hasn't been paid for.
And that's the $720,000.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, that's a good thing. I mean, I'm at least we got some kind of check and balance in place to catch
Yes. Yeah.
that.
And you are ratifying a duly executed bid process. So there were 3 bidders, and we are awarding, Great Minds they are the winner of that bid. So.
Right. And we're not afoul of any state law, state regulation in terms of having paid it without a contract?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean,
she's shaking her head.
Well, you know, we're ratifying it now. Right. So this is the action that we're taking to fix
it. To correct it.
Okay. Okay. And there's a request. All right, I'm good on the past. Now looking to the future. There's a request to ratify future payments. Is that the 720 or is it?
Approve future payments, not ratify.
Yes, approve future payments. Yeah, you're approving for us to pay what we owe.
Okay,
basically. None of these payments have been
that's
made
the
yet.
720. So,
Yes.
so the board action, it's not giving authority beyond the 720.
No.
Okay.
Wait. Yes, up until the bid amount was $780,000.
Okay.
So it'll be the 720 plus the 29 would have been paid, and if there's anything remaining, which that'll be the limit. It's still the bidded amount, which was $781,000, I think.
Okay.
Is what the total was. Yeah, 220.
Okay.
And all items may be received, so there may not be any more invoices, but that would be the limit that would be applied.
Okay. No, that's how I just wanted to know where the authority where it ended.
Yes.
Yep. And that's clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you for just clearing that up.
Yes, we've been dancing with this for a little bit.
All right. Okay, board member, hearing the explanations and updates, is there a motion to approve the request to ratify prior payments and
excuse me, I have a
yes, Dr.
question.
Harrison.
And thank you all for this explanation. The statement says any future payments will be made under the corrected board approval. Do we anticipate future payments? Is this like an ongoing relationship, or I'm just curious? I'm not sure I understand that.
I heard future payments.
Explain the bid amount.
Oh, yes. So if we had presented this correctly the first time, you would have been presented with a recommendation to approve the award to Great Minds for the amount of $780,000, whatever I said that amount was. That would have been what was presented. Now the only amount that's still outstanding would be the difference between the 2020 and the 29,000. So somewhere around 20,000 more is possibly could be ordered, in equipment could be ordered and utilized. So that it would not extend beyond this $780,000. Is that,
Great. Thank you so much.
781.
Thank you,
Seven, yeah.
Dr. Burke.
Yes. 781, yes.
Thanks, Dr. Hairston. All right, board members, is there a request to approve? Excuse me, a motion to approve?
I so move.
Second.
Ms. Hilliard has moved, Dr. Luckett has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Next, we have the request to approve the agreement. It's a renewal between Kelly Education Services and Jackson Public School District. Mr. Burke.
Yes, sir. The JPS administration recommends approving a renewal agreement between Jackson Public Schools and Kelly Educational Services to provide substitute employee staffing services at $85 per day. JPS continues to employ Kelly Services to help provide a better pool of subs, recruiting, selecting, and processing qualified candidates to ensure classroom readiness. Our district has collaborated with Kelly in prior years, and the agency has proven to provide robust and quality substitute teachers. As part of this ongoing review of this service, it has been determined that our substitute teacher pay rate is the lowest in the metro area. The renewal of this agreement increases the substitute teacher daily rate paid from $65 a day, which is approximately $8.13 an hour, to $85 a day, which is $10.62 an hour. The renewal of this agreement also updates the agreement for the signature of the current superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Any questions, board members? Thank you for including the table in the prep materials. That was very helpful. This was just for people who are listening, it was a table of the substitute teacher pay rates for adjacent school districts in the metro area. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Luckett has moved. Mr. Figurs has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 The motion carries. Next, we have the request to approve the 16-section lease agreement between Mike Bailey and the Jackson Public School District. Mr. Burke.
Yes, sir. The administration requests the Board of Trustees to approve the lease agreement between Jackson Public School District and Mike Bailey for the 16th section property located at 115 Wilmington Street, Jackson, Mississippi, identified as tax parcel 201-86. This request will allow the lessee to continue renting the 16th section property. The lease agreement is being executed for 5 years and will expire at noon on November 1st, 2027. The property was appraised on October 26, 2022, and the annual lease amount is $2,650, which the lessee has paid for November 2022. The property will be reappraised every 5 years, with the next appraisal date being November 2027. All taxes were current, and this simply, he basically assumed this lease. Somebody passed away. He kept paying the taxes. Now we're putting the lease in his name to keep it on the tax rolls. And the location will be used for a restaurant named Elite Fox Dent.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Burke. Board members, are there any questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
Second.
Ms. Hilliard has moved. Dr. Luckett has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 The motion carries. Next, we have the request to approve the monthly financial report for the month ended December 31st, 2022. Mr. Burke.
Yes, sir. The administration recommends the board approve the monthly financial report for the month ending December 31st, 2022. You have a copy of the report. I will and you also have an executive summary. The statement of fund balance section of your executive summary, I just want to point you to a couple things. In the general fund section, which is representative of funds 1,000 through 1999, page 4, our preliminary ending fund balance as of December 31st, 2022 was $19,306,644.94. This balance was approximately $4 million higher than it was in our prior year, compared to our prior year position. This continues to be as a result of a strong beginning balance and some tight expenditure control and monitoring that is ongoing in the business office. District maintenance expenditures are, however, unfortunately, are higher than revenues by $2.6 million at this time. In the special revenue sections, which are funds 2,000 through 2999, we see child nutrition on page 7 of your report continues to have a significantly high fund balance, somewhere around $10 million. We are continuing to look for and plan for options to reinvest those dollars into our meal program to enhance the students' meal experience and the dining experience, and also these dollars will be utilized in our plan for increasing pay for certain segments of workers in the district moving forward. Title funds are also the title funds, coronavirus response funds, IDEA funds, and other special revenue funds representative on page 8 through 9. Several of our funds do show negative balances. Those are highlighted, I think, for your ease of viewing. That number total together somewhere around $10.1 million. That continues to be the case due to the timing of drawdowns. We did our last drawdown before the holidays. We just did our last drawdown January 12th, and we're requesting about $2.9 million. So there's still some lag behind that, but we will hope to speed that up and work to speed that up as we move through the rest of the year. Budget status report for district maintenance, Fund 1120 on reference page 13. As of December 31st, 39.35% of our budgeted revenues have been collected. That was in December. We will start to see those pick up now that we're into January and the ad valorem tax collection season. But that equated to $74.2 million in collected revenues, as compared to 40.73% of our budgeted expenditures had been expended, and that's somewhere around $76.7 million. So you still see that $2 million lag from revenues to expenses. Our bank reconciliations referenced on page 24 through 27. As of November, they are up to date, and all of our funds are deposited with board-approved depositories. Cash flow report section referenced on page 29 of your report. As of December 31st, we had an ending cash balance of $5.5 million, and compared to last year at this time was about $6.5 million. So we're about $1 million less in our cash flow. With that, again, I will remind you that cash flow is made up of debts owed to us from other funds, federal funds, so there's that constant flow back and forth. But this is 18% lower than our prior year position. There's some key performance indicator reports. Again, the highlights from that section. Year to date, again, we are $2.5 million ahead in revenue collection over last year, and 0.63% under expenses under what we spent last year. So both of those are in very good positions. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Any questions, board members? The cash flow is just a timing issue, right? The $1 million difference over last year? Yes. Okay. All right. Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
Second.
Ms. Hilliard has moved. Dr. Luck has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 The motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Burke. Next, we have the consent agenda items for finance. All of the consent agenda items have been reviewed by the board previously, and board members have had an opportunity to ask questions. Are there any further questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda finance?
I so move. Madam President.
Second.
Mr. Figurs has moved. Ms. Hilliard has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 The motion carries. Next, we have consent agenda items, personnel. All the consent agenda items have been reviewed by the board previously, and we have an opportunity to ask questions of the administration. Are there any further questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Luckett has moved, Ms. Hilliard has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 The motion carries. Board members, we do have 2 items to consider for executive session. So is there a motion to close the meeting to consider executive session?
I so move.
Second.
Mr. Figurs has moved, Ms. Hilliard has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 The motion carries. Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening, and have a good night.